creating symmetry can turn a lackluster publication into one that gets noticed. In this video, we'll be reviewing the Align and Distribute tool in order to produce the layout we're looking for without having to perform precise measurements or lay out complex guides. So let's get started.
Welcome to class.
With Scribus running, let's create a new empty document. When setting up the document, we'll apply margins that are different sizes for the left and right side of our document, and then select OK. Notice how the left side of the document has a slightly larger margin. For the purposes of this demo, we'll add an image to our document by pressing I on the keyboard, and then while holding the Shift key down, clicking on the document inside the document margins. We'll then add an image by right-clicking on the frame and selecting Content, and then Get Image. And then select an image from the computer to add. And once it's been added, we'll manually scale the image to fit within the frame. The image we just added will be for demonstration purposes. So let's take a closer look at the image and see what it is we're trying to accomplish here. Starting from the top, we're looking to create a layout with a series of equal-sized frames. They could be text frames, shapes, or images. There are 4 rows with 2 frames in the first and last, and 4 in the second and third. All of the frames appear to have the same vertical distribution, and the horizontal distribution varies for the middle set of frames in rows 2 and 3. The next step will be to add our first frame. However, before we get too far, let's separate our example and working layers. From the Layers tab, press the plus button and give our layers a descriptive name. Now, if you've added a frame to your document like I have, you can move it to your working layer by selecting the background layer, right-clicking on the frame, and then selecting Move to Layer, and then selecting your working layer. And then we'll select the working layer from the Layers tab to ensure that we're not modifying our example layout image. Before we close the Layers tab, we'll uncheck the Print Layer checkbox to prevent the image layer from appearing on the final publication and when we preview our document. Now let's go ahead and line up our first frame so that it matches the first box in our example layout. And that should about do it. Once we have the size about right, we'll add a little color to the frame so that we can tell the difference between the working layer and the example in the background image layer. Now let's duplicate our frame so that we have another one on the document with the exact same dimensions and attributes. We can do this by selecting the first frame and pressing Ctrl and D on the keyboard. Now, if you don't have it open already, we can open the Align and Distribute control panel from the standard menu by selecting Windows, and then you guessed it, Align and Distribute. Now we can select both of our frames by clicking on the first frame, and then while holding the Shift key on the keyboard, select the second frame. Then from the Align and Distribute panel, we'll select the Align tab, set the Relative to Property to First Selected, and then select the Align to Top button. This will move the second frame so that it's at the same vertical position as the first frame selected. Now that the frames are aligned vertically, we need to ensure that they have a defined horizontal spacing, which we can accomplish with the Distribute tab. Select both frames, and on the Distribute tab, we'll set the distance value, and then select the Make Horizontal Gaps Between Items Equal to the Value Specified button. Yeah, it's good they have an icon for that button. After making a few changes to the distance value, I think we can settle on 11 millimeters. Because all of the frames are the same dimension, we can duplicate the first row and follow a similar process for the remaining rows. Before we duplicate the first row, we'll combine both elements into a group by selecting both frames and pressing Ctrl-G on the keyboard. Scribus will then start treating this group of frames as a single block frame. Now adjust our block frame so that the first frame in the group aligns with the example in the background image. Once it's lined up, we can ungroup the frames by pressing Ctrl, Shift, and G on the keyboard, and then adjust the horizontal distance between the frames using the Distribute tab. Seven millimeters seems about right. Again, we'll group these frames using Ctrl and G on the keyboard and duplicate the frames by pressing Ctrl D on the keyboard. Selecting the frames from row 2 and 3, we'll jump back in the Alignment tab and select Align Left Sides. And on the Distribute tab, we'll update our distance value and select Make vertical gaps between items equal to the value specified. Now we can do a little rinse and repeat. We'll group the frames in row 2 and 3 by pressing Ctrl-G on the keyboard and duplicate them by pressing Ctrl-D on the keyboard. We should now have two groups of 4 frames. Let's select both frames and from the Align tab select Align left side of items to right side of anchor, followed by Align tops. Then we work our way back to the Distribute tab and set a new distance value before adjusting the horizontal spacing. We may have to adjust the distance value a few times. Finally, we'll duplicate the first row one more time by selecting the first group of frames and pressing Ctrl-D on the keyboard. Then we'll select the middle group of frames, followed by selecting the new group of frames, and on the Align tab, select Align tops of items to bottom of anchor. Then jump over to the Distribute tab and set the distance to the same distance between each row and adjust the spacing. Then we'll select the first and last row of frame groups, and on the Align tab, select Align Left Sides. And that's about it. We can now toggle off the example layout background image by previewing our document. There is so much more the Align and Distribute tool is capable of, and this video only scratches the surface. If you're curious about the other buttons, don't be afraid to create your own example document and try out all of the options. In this video, we discussed using the Align and Distribute features in your document layouts to make modifying your designs more manageable. If this video helped you, or you would like to have us cover a specific topic in Scribus, let us know in the comments section. See you in the next one.